Yo, what is good, Celtics Nation? We are bringing you guys something very new, something very fun that you guys are going to be able to watch for the entirety of not only this season, but for the future, for the foreseeable future. We are making a brand new podcast. It's being called Bleed Green Pod. Every single Saturday, we'll have an episode come out. Me, my co host Ricky, diehard Celtics fans are ready to, discuss the ups, the downs, the bad, the goods, everything that comes with the Boston Celtics going forward. And honestly, Ricky, real quickly in a couple of words, how do you feel right now about a week before the start of the season? How are you feeling?
Listen, man, you're gonna have to change diehard Celtics fan Ricky to critical Celtics fan
Mm,
Ricky because I'm going to be very critical on this season. I'm not, particularly pleased with some of the things that we have and have not done in this off season, and over the last let's call it 48 hours, I think it's been even more apparent that we kind of missed the mark on some of these key additions that we have. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited about some of the pieces that we've added, but I definitely can notice the glaring issues with the things that we, quite frankly, have missed on, especially being a contender going into the season.
yeah, so I mean, let's touch up upon that real quick. Damian Lillard, brand new Milwaukee Buck, just a couple of hours ago, or maybe 2 days ago, whatever it was, got traded to the
Feels
Milwaukee Bucks. Now
feels like an eternity.
yeah, it seemed like he was gonna go to Miami, which either way, it would have been bad. But there were some other teams like the Raptors, maybe wouldn't have been as effective. But now that he's in Milwaukee, it kind of seems like they're the clear-cut favorites. And I don't really want to talk about it too much, but what is your initial reaction on Damian Lillard to Milwaukee? Because for me, they're really good. Obviously, on paper, they look like they're gonna come out the East. However, I think a lot of people are maybe overreacting or overestimating that how much of a depth and the bench matters because they pretty much gutted their bench. They're gonna have guys like Marion Beauchamp, who I get it was a solid guy coming out of or coming into the draft, didn't play much his rookie season. How much is him and Pat Connaughton? Can they take over this bench and make sure that they're still a solid team in terms of depth next year? Or do you think that primarily their front or their top five, six guys are going to carry the load?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely leaning more towards I hate this, and
Mm,
just for the reasons that you just alluded to right before you handed it off to me, which I just think this is just a solid addition, and I don't know if chemistry wise that'll work. That's a conversation only the Bucks can answer over the course of the season. But as far as talent goes, their talent making up for the lack of depth, I have no doubt that between Middleton and Lillard and Giannis and then all the other pieces,
Bobby
Lopez,
Portis.
Bobby
Yep.
Portis. You know what I mean? I think they're when you're playing big minutes in big games, and I'm talking about postseason. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves too because we got a regular season to talk about. But let's be honest, you got you got Milwaukee, you got Miami, and you got Boston. Those are probably going to be two of those teams you're going to see in the two of the three of those teams you're going to see in the ECF. So I mean, you just got to bring it out in the open and say when you're playing those kind of minutes, what is it? Seven guys in rotation. So how deep are you really getting? So you got to really ask
True.
yourself that kind of question. Now, obviously, that depends on if they're healthy, which you could say that about quite literally every team in the league, but
Especially the Celtics.
especially the Celtics, right?
Yeah.
So I hate it just for the fact that I'm a Celtics fan. I want the
Yep.
Celtics to win a title. I've been wanting a title since '08. I've been
Yep. Yep.
craving a title since '08. I thought we were going to get a title last year. We didn't get a title.
Yep.
And now we're sitting here. We were the favorite going to bed 2 days ago, and
Yep.
now we're the number two. Because in my opinion, when those games are really going to start to come down to it, if both teams are healthy and all things are equal, Giannis scares the shit out of me. And now Damian Lillard is that closer that they never had.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you just said. Listen, they're very top heavy. I agree. And the one thing that I also think is gonna hurt them is the defensive prowess of Drew Holiday. Now, Damian Lillard by far is the better scorer, and he can score from quite literally anywhere on the court. But Drew Holiday is the glue guy. He's the guy that's going to make the big time defensive stops. He's going to get the big time steal. He's going to play the passing lanes. He's going to do everything defensively. Do you think that they're going to be fine even without him defensively? Do you think their defense will still be what it was last season, or because I kind of think they're going to take a little bit of a step back defensively, but offensively they'll probably get a lot better.
They could have an issue guarding guys, but all ultimately comes down to is then can they outscore what they can't guard? You
And
know what
they
I mean?
probably
And
can.
and I think right, and I think I think that has been a recipe for a lot of the teams out there that just weren't super strong defensively, but just were so dynamic offensively. I mean, you think of those Golden State Warrior teams; they had some good defensive players, but they were just dominant scorers. You couldn't outscore them no matter how little they played defense. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're that team, but you know, Giannis is certainly an elite defender. You know what I
Yep.
mean? When he wants to be. And I know Damian Lillard isn't known for his defensive prowess, but I can tell you one thing: any elite player in the league can be motivated to play defense if they're enticed in some way. And Damian Lillard seems motivated with with the chip. I
Yep.
think really the outlier is how much does he want to be in Milwaukee? Is he going to gel with Giannis and the crew? I was reading on some things that I guess Milwaukee wasn't really a destination for him, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It just means that it wasn't Miami. Miami was kind of the perfect fit for Dame,
Oh
and
yeah.
now he's going to have to be put himself in the situation that he's going to have to kind of make himself fit on a team that Giannis is definitely going to welcome him to.
Yeah, well, that's another point I want to bring up is I feel like a couple of days ago woke up and saw something saying Giannis might not be in Milwaukee too much longer. Maybe he wants to get out of there when his contract's up. Maybe he wants to request a trade. But now that Damian Lillard's here, that might change everything for him. Or think about it this way: maybe Damian Lillard didn't want to be here and plays a season and is gone. Maybe after this season he requests a trade. Who knows what Damian Lillard wants? I also heard something that him not going to Miami, he was fine with actually staying in Portland. And the GM was actually like, no, I don't even want you here anymore because you wanted
Right.
out in the first place. So we don't know what's going to happen with the Bucks. They could do really good. They could have a really bad season. Kind of think of it like the 2022 Suns. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. Everyone saw that and was like, who's going to stop these guys? But quite frankly, they weren't that good. Didn't have depth, didn't have team chemistry, and they kind of, imploded.
Brooklyn.
Yep, they kind of imploded. And then the Suns last year, everyone thought, well, who the hell is going to stop Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Ayton, KD? And they didn't
Yeah.
really pan out too well either come playoff time. So we don't really know
Yeah.
what's going on with Milwaukee. I will say one thing, though. On paper, they are probably the best roster in the NBA in terms of versatility, scoring, and they do still have some defensive guys in Giannis and Brook Lopez, and Bobby Portis is a hustler, so always can credit him. Chris Middleton, lengthy as hell. So they have a lot of talent. It's going to come down to if they can get guys in the buyout market or if their chemistry is as good as most of the other teams. But they're definitely a scary team. But I kind of want to move into the Celtics. This Celtics podcast, we gave you our Damian Lillard little, how we thought about it. But let's
It
talk
matters.
about, yeah, well, let's talk about the Celtics. Jaylen Brown, let's firstly touch upon this. Just signed a 5-year, $304 million contract extension to stay in Boston for at least the foreseeable future. I believe there's an out in year 3 or 4 that we could get out if he wanted to be out. But what's your initial reaction of the Jaylen Brown extension? And then I'll tell you how I feel about it.
I mean, they didn't have a choice. He's next up. I mean, look what happened, right? JB got paid. Who got paid right after that? AD. It's just the market. It's just the system that they're put in place. You can't let that guy walk. He's too talented to walk. Is he worth the money? I mean, no. He should be making more than Steph Curry if we want to be logical about it. But at the end of the
Yep.
day, that's the market. You know what I mean? It's like that in every sporting, professional sporting organization.
Yep.
Guys are just going to get paid oodles amount of money just because it's their turn in the pecking order. That's just the way it is. So I'm not knocking JB. I think he's special. I think he's an all-star. I think he's worth, you know, hey, listen, man, it's their money, not mine. I could
Yep.
really give a shit what they pay somebody, but like, is he worth the highest paid player in the league? No, absolutely not. But at the same time, again, it's it's it had to happen. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad he's here. I'm glad that we found a way to keep the peace, at least for the time being. It seemed like there was, some off-season turmoil with all how that stuff was going, and I'm glad they were able to make it work. But if you're asking me, did he deserve to be the highest paid player in the NBA? No, no, he absolutely did
Yeah.
not.
No, yeah, I get that. And that's what a lot of people are saying right now. When that first happened, you saw all of Twitter or X, whatever it's called, everybody just sitting
It'll
there
always be
saying,
Twitter.
yeah, everybody sitting there saying, how is Jaylen Brown the highest paid player? How does he deserve this? The Celtics made a terrible move. But what I want to say to those people is the NBA is constantly the salary cap is going up. So I guarantee you in a year, in 2 years, Anthony Edwards, whenever his time to get paid is, he's going to make more money than that. Like, it's just going to keep going up. There's going to be a time in 3 years from now, Jaylen Brown's like the 20th highest paid player. You know what I mean? So if
Mhm.
that's your issue with it, I understand it for now, but in a couple of years, it won't be as bad as it could be. You know what I mean? Um,
It's not a hard cap league. So,
yeah,
again, they can go as far into it. They dip into the luxury tax. They're right up there with Golden State and some of these other teams with the high end luxury tax. And, quite frankly, in my opinion, I think you got to spend to win in this league. It's a very, you know, it's a superstar league. The super teams are kind of dead, but let's face it, you got to have two, unless you drafted them and they just
yeah,
ended up being all world talent. You're getting two guys on one on a max, one on a super max, and then the supporting cast. That's typically been the format since the LeBron years with the
yep,
Heat, since the big three really just stopped being a thing that worked really really well in the NBA. Now it's pretty much a non-factor, and now you're having it's all about duos, two-man games.
yep,
Your Murray and your Jokic. That's the prime example of what's going to win you a
yep,
title right now. But you still got to spend money on the pieces around them.
yep.
Good defensive talent, a good 3-and-D guy, a good ball distributor. Celtics, hello.
Yeah.
It's it's just it's just that type of market. So they got to spend. They did that. They spent on JB. They spent on Chris Stapps. They're going to spend on Tatum next year. You best believe they're going to
Yep.
you know give him the bag and secure him a couple more years. But the clock is now ticking because you're spending all this money. These guys are wanting to win now, and you got it. The window is now. We're in the window, so
Yep.
it's time.
Yeah, I mean, another reason they needed to do this signing too is because I don't know if you remember, but I think the last press conference after we lost the Eastern Conference Finals, Jason Tatum went out there on the podium and said, "Listen, we need Jaylen Brown back." He literally said, "Brad Stevens, I need Jaylen Brown back on this team. Do whatever
Hmm.
it takes, get him back on this roster." So not only did they need him in terms of his talent and what he does on the court, but Jason Tatum, your superstar, your maybe Hall of Famer down line is saying, get him back on the team. And if you don't, who knows? Maybe he requests a trade because you lose Jaylen Brown, the window is probably closed.
I mean,
Dep-
it's been a back and forth thing with JB though. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Does he love it here? He's made comments about the fan base and the culture and owning businesses here and things of
yeah,
that nature. And I'm sure he likes it more than he doesn't. I mean, it's his the team that drafted him. I'm sure he's got some sort of love. You questioned his relationship with Brad Stevens, the coach, as opposed to now the GM. So you
yep,
got a lot of these question marks that you didn't know going into the signing. But let's be honest, if you give him the supermax, he's gonna take the supermax.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
because at the end of the day, the money's gonna talk. But there's nothing stopping him from taking that contract, settling in for a year, 2 seasons, and then just requesting a way out. And with the way the league is, you can trade that contract. Teams will take that
yeah.
contract, but
Oh,
you
for
don't want
sure.
that. You want them to build around those two guys and win a title. But you know, if they don't do it within 2 to 3 years, I fear exactly that it's just
Yeah.
going to be that guys wanting to get out because they don't think they can win here.
Yeah, and that's where the outcomes are. I believe I read like when it first happened that year 3 or 4 in the contract, there's a way that they can trade it and not lose as much money in terms of guaranteed. So we'll see what happens. But overall, Jalen as a player, I'm excited to be back. I would have been personally heartbroken if Jalen left the Celtics. I mean, he went from what 2018, he scored 13 points a game, jumped up to 20, then he went up to 25, and now last year he scored about 27 points a game. Kind of had a bad year shooting the three ball, so hopefully that gets back up. I mean, he was shooting 40% in 2020, 2021. So,
Turnovers.
yeah, turnovers are bad. That left hand, but the one thing I'll say about Jalen Brown, rookie, his work ethic is high. He is probably one of the hardest working players in the NBA. I
Uh,
mean, to jump up from 6 points to 27 points, I mean, he works hard. I
uh,
guarantee you, wait, hold on. I guarantee you by the first month, 2 months, you're going to see him put the ball on the floor with his left hand, and he will be way better than he was last year. I can almost guarantee it.
I heard this last year, Fubs. If they're gonna pay him all that money, he better go to the rack on that left. You better not be able to tell
Yeah.
me just make him go to the left. Just make him go to the left.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be pretty, man. And listen, everybody's got a weak point to their game, so I'm not expecting this guy to be. I mean, you talk about a guy who can defend, a guy who can shoot. I mean, I remember when he came out of Cal and he was like, everyone was flipping out, people booed. This guy can't shoot. He's
Couldn't do anything.
terrible.
He was a
Yeah,
defender, an athletic defender. That's what he
yeah,
was.
yeah. And they turned him into a great shooter. His free throws are to be desired. I feel like every year I say that, but
Hey,
whatever.
career high, 76.5. Still not great.
That's
Career
not
high.
good.
I
No,
know.
that's not that good, especially since a lot of times he ends up on the two, playing
Yeah.
the shooting guard position. So, it's not great, but I mean, at the end of the day, he offers you so much value, and
Yeah.
as a defender, you have to respect him. You have to guard him outside the three, and he can if you leave him open, he'll make you pay for it. So, he's come a long way from that type of player, but you know, this just then is going to go to the, and I'm telling you, Fubs, I'm on this theme all year long until they get a a pre a primary ball handler to distribute to guys like Tatum and Brown. I'm calling them out. I'm calling out
Yep.
Stevens. I'm calling out the organization
Drew
because I'm,
Holiday.
I'm listen. They get Drew. I'll shut up. I'll stop talking. If they go, and I was looking at this yesterday, something about Austin Reeves wanting to come here. Listen, I'm not saying Austin Reeves is
It's
going to
too late
start.
now. He just signed a big extension, right?
Did he? Is that what
Yeah,
just came
I'm
out?
pretty
If I
sure. Look,
I
I
missed
think a
it.
couple months ago he signed a big extension with LA. I think. Could be wrong.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look because I was looking to see who was still available, and I was I and I don't know how I feel about Cameron Payne, but I was looking at guys like Cameron Payne
Mm,
and Austin Reeves, and I'm like, see, guys like this would be nice, even just to put in the rotation off the
yeah.
bench. If you want a Derek White to be the primary ball handler, I don't love it, but at least you're taking the duties off of Tatum and Brown to let them be off the ball scorers,
Yeah.
which I feel like is really what they do best. Because nothing drives me crazier than a clear out Tatum iso ball situation. I want to like literally throw my fist through the TV when I hear him call everybody
Yeah.
off. He wants to go one on one with a defender.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And I
I
know
hear
that
you.
I know that's like a thing that players do and all this shit, but you're trying to win games, dude. Like, especially if I see that in the postseason, I want to lose my mind because it's, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't offer you any value. You're not giving the defense anything to look at. All you're doing is putting all eyes on one player. It's like,
Yeah.
I just, I don't like it. I didn't like the approach towards the end of the season and the way they handled a lot of the stuff offensively. I think they didn't put enough emphasis on defense. Marcus Smart called them out for not having enough emphasis on defense. Not only did he call out the team, but he also called out Joe Mazzulla.
Yep.
But I mean, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. But I mean, this goes all back to what you were just talking about when we're talking about, just adding the proper pieces around them so they can, win a title.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You said Marcus Smart. Let's touch up on Marcus Smart a little bit, man. He's gone. The longest tenured Celtic is now Jalen Brown. It's now Jalen Brown, right? So Marcus Smart over there in Memphis. Listen, I love Marcus Smart. I will always love Marcus Smart. The things he does on the court is amazing to watch. Just dives in the floor for loose ball, puts his body on line every single play. There were some times I got a little frustrated with his, shot IQ, is chucking up threes, and sometimes he made some boneheaded plays, but overall, Marcus Smart will always be one of my favorite Celtics for just his effort and the way he approached the game every single night, man. I'm going to miss Marcus Smart. How do you feel about the Marcus Smart departure? Because losing him, you're losing the locker room guy. You're losing who everyone loved in terms of like Jason Tatum, Al Horford. Those guys love Marcus Smart. And it might be a big missing piece next year.
I mean, I don't know if JB loved Marcus Smart. I certainly know he had his love hate relationship with Marcus. I mean, just based off of the comments, I don't know the relationship personally, but I personally will not miss Marcus Smart. And just and it's nothing against Marcus. He's a great player. He
Mhm.
thought he was the third member of the big three. He wasn't. He thought he was a guy who could take a shot late in the game. He wasn't. He just wasn't that guy. So my issue with Smart is he was a great player and a great leader. I did look at him as a leader of the team, and he could
Yep.
galvanize the troops. But you know, he wasn't consistent in the way that he really needed to be consistent. Like for example, if you remember that game one Miami ECF, Marcus
Yep.
Smart is diming everybody up,
Yep.
diming everybody up, and I'm like, where has this been? Where's this Marcus been? Can we get
Yep.
more of this Marcus? Because if we can, shit, we're gonna go to a title run, and we didn't. You know what they did? They said, lay off him, let him shoot, because if you leave Marcus open on the 3 point line, he cannot help himself but to
Yeah.
huck up that three, and he just hasn't been a good 3 point shooter. Listen, I love his personality, I love his edge. And this is why, like, I'd love someone like Pat Beverly to kind of get that edge back. I think that's kind of why they drafted this young boy um, this year. Not that he might have that same type of jarry,
Yep.
chirpy edge,
He
but I think
does.
that,
I
and
think
I
he
think,
does.
but I think defensively he's got that grit, and I think that
Hmm.
that's kind of what they're trying to add on there. Really, not so much caring about the shit talking, just more so, being that guy on the court that can kind of, set that edge and just let people know
Yeah.
that it's not going to be easy on them.
Oh yeah, the
But
hustler.
and he was always good for the theatrics, the flopping, the extra, I and all the stuff he was doing to get calls, and it was great and it was memorable, and he's an iconic Celtic.
Yeah.
He's not a Mount Rushmore. He's not, anything. I hate to say it, it's not anything we can't replace. I understand he from an intangible perspective, maybe like a leadership perspective, he's
Yeah.
irreplaceable in that matter, and we'll find out this season if he
Yeah.
is or isn't. But from a tangible perspective, a skill set perspective, a shooting perspective, I, I don't see why you can't replace that guy. I
Yeah.
really
No, yeah.
and look at the sample size. What did we get with Marcus? We went to one finals and a bunch of ECFs. Like if your goal is to win a title, then you tried. You gave Marcus plenty of chances with this team to try, and it just came up short every time.
Yeah.
So you gotta change the dynamic. The DNA of the team had to change, and Marcus part is the biggest part of that DNA. And if you don't make that change, then the team doesn't grow.
So real quickly, I want a short answer out of you for this one. Then we'll move on to the next topic. Would you have rather traded Malcolm Brogdon to acquire Kristaps Porzingis, or are you happy that we still have Brogdon and Marcus Smart is now gone? Because originally Malcolm was the first one gone, and then
Back
it
then,
got
I would have said Smart, but now with the distressed asset, I would obviously say Brogdon
Brogdon now. Okay, well,
because he's a distressed asset. Knowing what we know
yeah,
now, I mean, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Marcus
yeah,
would have stayed here forever, and now Brogdon, like, he's 1 foot out the door.
yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. So next, I want to talk about what we brought in. Kristaps Porzingis. Now, listen, there's been a lot of hatred on Kristaps Porzingis ever since he was first drafted to New York. There was booze. He's never been a fan favorite. He's never been someone that's wowed. He went to Dallas, kind of underperformed. Then went to Washington. Bradley Beal was gone, and he kind of turned into. I'm not gonna lie. He was really good in
A
Washington.
bucket.
He
He was a
was the
bucket.
bucket. He was the
Yeah,
bucket. He
bucket.
averaged a career high 23 points a night. He also averaged a career high 38.5% from three. Actually, excuse me, that was his second. He shot 39.5 in 1 year back in 2018, but 38.5% from three is an amazing for what 7 foot, 7 foot three. He's seven
Hmm.
three three three, shooting over 38% from the 3 point line. He also shot
Hmm.
a career high 49.8% from the field. He was an absolute bucket last season. And not
He
only
was.
that, he was one of the best rim protectors in all of basketball. So you talk about a Giannis, you talk about being scared of, maybe Giannis or Jokic. Porzingis, if he's healthy, is probably one of the best players that you can stick in the paint to defend Giannis. And you also have Rob Williams and Al Horford, three very good, guys in terms of defending the paint. Those are guys you want. But another area that I like about Kristaps Porzingis is his post play. Now, if you remember a couple years ago, remember Al Horford was run as that, like, he was kind of like the point guard. He would hold the ball at the top of the key and kind of facilitate. You remember that? That's what Porzingis was doing last year. And honestly, he was one of the most efficient post scorers in all of basketball. When's the last time you've seen the Celtics be efficient in terms of post scoring? When have we ever had a post scorer since KG?
I remember JB putting him on a poster.
He did. He did put him on a poster. But
Um, no, to answer your question, yeah, no, I mean, it's an asset, and he can stretch the floor, and people don't give him enough respect defensively for what he is as a defender.
yep,
His Achilles heel is his health.
yep,
It's play. I mean, now he's got like plantar fasciitis, you know, bad feet. You know what I mean? And the
Yep.
guy's on his feet all day, so couldn't play in the Olympics because of that. Or I mean, I have a theory on that. I think the Celtics told him, dude, you can't. We
Yeah.
just gave you
I
all
mean,
this money. What are you gonna do?
what happened
You
with
know,
Gallinari last year? Didn't even get to see him play.
nope, nope, we didn't
Yeah.
get to see him play, and that was unfortunate because you talk about off scoring production, but I mean, off the bench production, but I mean, that's a whole nother topic. But I mean, to answer your question, post play, it's major. Rob Williams gave you it in spurts as far as a guy who can score down low, and there was a lot of times where there was a nice two-man game between either White and Williams or Smart and Williams, where they were just kind of running a little two-man show, and Williams was just putting up points underneath because everybody else wasn't making shots, or that's what the defense was giving them. So Kristaps gives you that dynamic of, hey, I can score in the post, or I can, hit from the elbow, or hey, let me just step back and
Sit
take this three, and
sit in the
he can
corner.
do, yeah, he can do all, yeah, he can sit in the corner, take those threes. There's definitely that whole dynamic, and I think it'll work if he can stay healthy, and
Yep.
that's really the concern because we've just haven't had that kind of luck with big men. Rob Williams is always hurt,
Yep.
and Kristaps Porzingis unfortunately always has a case of he's always injured. So
Yep.
if we can keep him healthy, if that means we have to regulate his regular season, I'm not worried about the regular season. We
Yep.
got that on lock. They'll win 55, 60 games. I'm confident in that. I don't really worry about that. Would I want a one seed with Milwaukee Bruin? Yeah, absolutely want a one seed
Yep.
with Milwaukee Bruin. But would I rather have a 2 or 3 seed and everybody healthy? I would much rather be a 1 or 2 seed with everybody healthy.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. Again, I mean, health is going to be the biggest question mark for the Celtics this season. However, with that being said, I believe if we stay healthy, I think we're right up there with the Bucks. Like I said before, I think the two-man game with Dame and Giannis, I think will be very good defending that. You have two guys who are extremely good in the paint and defending, and then you have Jalen, you have Derek White, you have Jason Tatum, who can all defend as well. Everybody can switch. I feel like our defense is going to hit go back to that year with Ime Udoka. I mean, our defense was incredible that year. I could see our defense going back to that style of play. It's all going to come down to health, though, man. I am excited to see what Porzingis brings. And you talk about Joe Mazzulla's system, and man, the Celtics last year, what were they doing? Shooting goddamn threes. That's the only thing we were doing. But
Well,
in this starting lineup, in this starting lineup, who can't shoot threes? Let's just say it's Derek White, Jalen, Jason, Porzingis, and Al. That's what I've seen as a starting lineup or projected starting lineups. They can all shoot. And I'll tell you one thing: Bam Adebayo, who killed us in the paint defensively last year, he's not going to be able to be in the paint. With that lineup that I just named, he can't be in the paint. He's gonna have to be on the corner. He's gonna have to be up top on the pick and roll, the pick and pop. He's gonna have to. He won't be in the paint. And if you remember Jason Tatum getting blocked by Bam a couple years ago in the playoffs, and it was huge because Bam made a crazy play, he's not gonna be able to do that anymore because he's gonna be on the outside. And then if they want to switch it, you're gonna have Porzingis on Kyle Lowry. So I mean, I'm I'm excited because I think Porzingis adds a whole new dynamic that we haven't seen in over a decade to Boston. So personally, I'm excited, and I think he fits Joe Mazzulla's system almost to a T.
yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you're saying in that sense. I think that again, it just comes down to a couple of different things. But I mean, on the topic of Joe Mazzulla, I do wish he would change his stance on just some of his principles of the game because I just think he just prioritizes the three ball way too much. And I think, I mean, he literally said it. The most important stat is you know 3-point attempts.
Yep.
So he's essentially prioritizing this. And if you're going to live and die by the three, I just don't think that our roster is essentially built for that. I think that we need to take the time to establish a game where we're running, we're getting easy twos, and I think that there's an ability to do that when you can spread the floor. And then the other thing, I don't think you put enough emphasis on defense. Ime was emphatic about defense. It was important to Ime, and I just don't feel like Joe Mazzulla prioritized that. So I mean, as much as I like Joe, and I think he did a great job during the regular season, I think guys like Spolster and some of these other coaches really just in some moments outcoached them. I mean, even in that
Yeah.
Atlanta series, I feel like at some points he was just
Yeah.
being outcoached.
That wasn't a great series, man. That was always one where I was like, damn, we just aren't playing up to where we should be. So that was, yeah, that was an eye-opening series. I feel like we could have lost that series easily, but you know, like I said before, I'm excited for this team. I'm excited for the moves that we made. But in your opinion, what do you think the starting lineup should be on opening day? I mean, for me, I'm gonna say Derek White, Jalen, Jason, Porzingis. And I kind of want to go Rob, but I think they're gonna go Al just because he can shoot.
I like to see. Um, I would like to see Pritchard, White, JB, Tatum, and Porzingis.
Oh, Pritchard in the starting lineup. Okay, you know what? I mean, I don't hate it. He's not a great defender, but he can shoot the ball, and we saw that even in the playoffs a little bit. I feel like he got hot in some games, and
It's it's not even about being the better player. I mean, realistically, if you want to talk about skill, I'll put White there. But my issue um, with just kind of the way the lineup is, I'm imagining it at one point JB comes in, Tatum stays in, JB goes in, Tatum comes out.
that's what
So
it's gonna be like. Yeah,
my thing is that during those, depending on how they're rotating, I think having Pritchard in there to be the primary ball handler for either or, it doesn't even matter at which point they're pulling it out. Like even if you say like, hey, Pritchard's going to stay with JB, and then White's going to be the primary ball handler for Tatum when they're swapping. I think that will at least alleviate the primary ball handling skills from those two players, and then that way um, it's more cohesive on a rotation. Because I'm talking about looking at the big picture from a whole game perspective. If we're talking about who's the five best players on the court, I mean, I'm probably going White, JB, JT, Porzingis, and and Williams and Rob.
yep,
So those would be the top five. But I like if Pritchard can mold a role for himself, and when he wants to score, and when he's hot, he's a great
yeah,
scorer. So
he
I
is.
know he can shoot it. You're right, he's a liability defensively, but you can mask that with certain matchups, and
Yeah,
in the regular season it doesn't matter. Hopefully he develops into a better defender,
yeah,
or get your head out of your ass and go get a Drew Holiday, go get
yep,
somebody, man. Like just go get
yeah.
somebody, just go make a deal. And I'll say this about Brad, he's not afraid to go do that, so hopefully he does.
Yeah, I mean, in your point, with Peyton Pritchard starting, that doesn't mean he has to go and play 25, 30 minutes a night. He could start
No,
and get 12 minutes. I mean,
no.
you start and maybe close lineups some nights. I mean, just because he starts doesn't mean he's going to be a
he's
big time.
he's an excellent ball handler. An
Yeah,
excellent ball. It doesn't get enough attention as how good of a ball handler he is, and he can dribble and he can facilitate, and that's what they need.
yeah.
They don't
So
need a guy to score 20.
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Quick question. So which is going to be your most favorite, or which are you most excited about in terms of the two-man game? Because we have a lot of potential here. We got JB Rob, we got Derek White Rob, we got Tatum and Porzingis, Tatum and Al. I mean, there's so much two-man game that can happen in this offense now. For me, I'm excited for maybe like a Jalen Brown Porzingis or a Jason Tatum Porzingis could be really fun to watch and could work very, very well. We talk about Damon and Giannis. We could have one too.
Yeah, I like. I hope Tatum takes that next step, and him and Rob can develop a two-man game. I think that would be the next step for Rob's game,
Yeah.
especially that he's trying to develop a little bit more of an outside shot. And I know that's not really his thing, but
Yeah.
if Tatum can become a more consistent passer, because I think he is a good passer, but he's just not a consistently good passer.
Yeah.
Um, if he can become a better passer and really facilitate those lobs, especially the ones that Marcus Smart got so good at
A
while he
couple of
was
years
here.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we
So
went away from that.
we did. We did because again, Ime prioritized something that Joe Mazzulla doesn't prioritize. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I'm really hoping with Cassell and some of these other coaches coming in that they're going to be able to prioritize things differently.
Yeah, I think Cassell is going to be a big time addition, man. I mean, he helped develop Maxi over there. He kept things in line when things were going south a lot with James Harden. I think Cassell is going to be actually a really big pickup for us, and it's kind of like having another head coach on the end of the bench. So I'm actually pretty excited about Sam Cassell. Let's talk about Malcolm Brogdon real quick. Now, listen, Malcolm Brogdon, like you said earlier in the podcast, he's 1 foot out the door. But we don't really know what's going to happen. He might stay. He might go. Should we trade him? Should we keep him? I mean, for me, I would love to have him on the team. Sixth man of the year last year. He was amazing off the bench, just, creating shots. He was giving you a lot of, good passes. He was hustling. I feel like Malcolm Brogdon is the type of player you want on your team, but it's awkward. We traded him. He was not supposed to be here right now, and he's here. So what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen with Brogdon? Should we trade him? Should we try to get? I know you already said you
He's,
want Drew Holiday. Is that realistic? And what
he's
do you
gone.
expect? You think he's
He's
gone
gone.
no matter what?
He's gone. Yeah,
I
I think he's gone. I think he's a distressed asset. I think he needs to go.
Yeah.
And I like Brogdon. I liked him before he was here. I liked him that he was here. I thought he was the guy off the bench that I've been begging for 3 seasons, and it's unfortunate, but it sounds like the Clippers still want him. I'm open to that. It sounds like there's still a way to move him,
But what
if
do
it
we
means
get? What do we get from the Clippers?
well, I really can't think of anything I'd want from the Clippers because there's really no facilitator on that team that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I mean, in a perfect world, Portland's him and Horford and 2 firsts. I do that deal tomorrow. I do that deal right
Uh,
now.
yeah. What about there was a guy I was thinking about, John Wall on a vet minimum. Would you take John Wall if we end up trading Malcolm
Yes,
Brogdon and I don't
yes,
know what we'd get? You would take John Wall?
yes. I would take John Wall. I would take John Wall just for the facilitator purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the fourth scorer on the lineup. I don't need him to be a scorer. I don't need him to be a dog. I
No, he will
shit. I
be a
don't
dog. He will
shit. I
be a
don't
dog.
need. Shit, I don't even need him to be a starter. I mean, they will make him a starter, but I don't even technically need that if that's not what they want to do. It doesn't necessarily mean these guys are all egos, so I'm sure he'll start. But
Yeah.
yeah, John Wall, sure, yeah, I take
I
John Wall.
I think that would be kind of interesting. I mean, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's a great passer. He's a dog. Like you said, he is a dog. He will give you good passes and he will do whatever it takes to win every single possession. So I wouldn't mind having John Wall on a vet minimum. It's just would he accept the vet minimum at this point? Who really knows? I don't think he's on a team right now, is he?
I was just looking up this thing that said like listing the top 10 point guard free agents just because I was trying to workshop, maybe somebody we'd like to pick up off the streets. And Cameron Payne, John Wall, and Austin Reeves are all on that list. So
Okay.
I don't know, and I'm pretty sure Austin Reeves' last signing was with Minnesota last year, so I think he's also a free agent.
Wait,
I
who?
don't Austin Reeves,
Is he?
Austin Rivers,
Oh,
Jesus
Austin
Christ,
Rivers. Austin
Aus,
Rivers.
Austin
Okay.
Rivers. I'm sorry, Austin Rivers.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Yeah, Austin Rivers. That would be an interesting one. I mean, yeah, he's not
Have,
in
have
the
I been
league right now.
have I been saying Austin Reeves this
Yeah,
whole
you've
time?
been saying Austin Reeves. That's why I was like, he just signed a big extension with the Lakers. I was so confused. I was like, I
Oh,
swear.
I was
Yeah,
thinking about that. I was thinking about that gold medal he squandered.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind any of those guys, but I think John Wall is most preferably for me. I would
Well,
take Alex Crusoe too, to be honest.
it's only right that on the first episode I make my first blunder. Oh,
Yeah, Laker. You pick a Laker.
yeah. Oh, I just picked the wrong. I just named the wrong guy in
Yeah,
general. People are gonna listen to this like, what the fuck is he
yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like Malcolm Brogdon's gone with media day, maybe less than a week away. I think it's Monday. I have no idea, man. Like you said today, I saw something about Malcolm Brogdon maybe going to the Clippers still or
Yeah,
whatnot. So listen, when news happens, we'll be here to report on it. But um, I have no idea, and nobody can really predict where Malcolm Brogdon's gonna go, if he's gonna be here or not. So I'm just kind of in the wait and see kind of stage right now. Like it is what
yeah,
it is. I want him here. If he doesn't want to be here, we'll trade him off somewhere and hopefully get something in return. But with that being said, we did bring in a couple of free agents, a couple of additions to this team that I think are very interesting. Firstly, I want to talk about Delano Banton. Now, Delano Banton is a former Toronto Raptor. He's a guard, but the crazy thing about him is he is, I believe, 6'8". 6'8" ball handler, can pass very well and can defend very well. Not a great shooter, but all those things that we're talking about, we want a ball handler, we want a guy that can facilitate. He did that. And if you watch preseason, he was doing that. He was getting rebounds. He was pushing in transition. He was finding open, cutters. He was doing a
Mm.
lot of those things. But is he ready right now to come in? He's 23 years old. Is he ready?
No,
No,
not
no.
ready. No, he's
I
not
mean,
ready.
he did get some valuable playing time with the Raptors last year, but with some injuries, I think Fred VanVleet missed some time over there. He saw a couple of games, but he's young, but he has potential. I mean, when you're 6'8" and you're a point guard that can
Yeah,
defend and pass and dribble and push the floor, that's got to be some sort of value.
yeah. I mean, maybe at the end of the season, maybe next year, but I
Not
just
ready to give him the keys.
these fringy guys coming into the system like right before the season, like I just don't ever see them be like key contributors. Like maybe
Yeah.
they get a game or two in the regular season where you're like, oh my god, like big flash, like
Kind of
ooh
like
yeah.
Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague's first preseason game with us, he dropped like 40 or something, and then he never did anything again.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like he's just like a guy that's just gonna come in and fly, and maybe he won't. Maybe there'll be some staying power there, but I just no. I mean, I don't see it. I just don't. I think that when you're talking about maybe in Houston, right? It's just
Yeah.
like this is a caliber of team that the standards is so much higher,
Yeah.
and maybe he's a 7 8 minute guy coming off the bench, on the regular season. Sure, fine, he gives you a flash, fine, but I just don't see it being he's in a 7 man rotation in the ECF and he's giving you quality minutes. If he does great, prove me
Yeah.
wrong. I would love to be proven wrong in that aspect, but I just don't see it.
Yeah. We also brought in former Indiana Pacer, and this is a guy I actually liked a couple years ago. I think he had an off year last year, but O'Shea Brissett. Now, he's another kind of guy who, listen, it seemed like Brad Stevens had one goal in mind this season, and it was to get better defensively. O'Shea Brissett is a guy from Indiana who I think is 6'7", 210 pounds. And he can defend. He's a very good defender. He can switch 1 through 4 for the most part, plays the pass lanes very well. But again, he's not a great shooter. Not a great shooter, has shown some potential in the past, but a guy who's going to come in here, work hard, and maybe see some minutes here and there, maybe make some big plays. He's athletic, like I said, can defend. But I don't really know if he's going to have a role with this team. Obviously, we lost Grant Williams. If we want a replacement for Grant, I think he's the closest thing to it in terms of a defender who can switch a bunch of positions and can work hard defensively. But again,
Maybe he's that. Maybe he's in Maine.
yeah, maybe he's the main. You don't really know. I mean, he's what, 25 years old right now, 4 years of experience at Syracuse. I
I
mean,
mean, I feel like we drafted this kid this year, and I feel like he's going to do a lot of the Grant Williams things that we were asking Grant
okay,
to do.
so Jordan Walsh, our
Yeah,
only draft pick this year, right?
I like Jordan Walsh. I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be a contributor in some regular season moments, and we'll get all horned up for it when the regular season's happening, and we're going to be like, why are we giving him more minutes? He needs more
Yeah,
minutes, and
yeah,
we're gonna overhype because we as a fan base we just love to hype these
yeah.
little role
Especially just
guys,
yeah.
Sammy Hauser and we know I
Even
remember
JD Davidson, man, was getting so much hype. I mean, he's not anything crazy, but people just
he,
love him.
he played in Maine, man. He played in
Yeah,
Maine, and
yeah,
although you hope those guys develop after a season or two, and then you can put them in the rotation. But I think the only young guy that maybe we're bringing in that might give you something that is going to be Walsh. I think the rest of it's going to be these these guys we're bringing in that have a pedigree and a proven track record, and they'll probably run 8 9 10 deep in the regular season, and then you'll watch them buckle it down to 6 7 8 when the postseason comes.
yeah. I think preseason is going to be very crucial for some of these guys. O'Shea Brissett, Delano Banton, and even some of the other guys down the line, Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett, JD Davidson. Preseason is going to be huge for these guys. If they want any chance to play at all in the regular season, they're going to have to ball out during preseason.
Cornette's another one everybody gets all hot and bothered
Yeah.
for. He's got one flashy moment, everyone takes their pants off.
Yeah. But going back to Jordan Walsh real quick, I, coming out of college, I watched some of his tape. Defender, scrappy, Marcus Smart type of guy. He's going to do whatever it takes to win the ball on the floor. He's going to dive on the floor. He's going to get big hustle plays. He's going to get big time rebounds. He's going to get block shots. He's going to do all of that. Coming out of college, not known at all for shooting. And, coming in, I was like, well, this is probably going to be a project, probably going to take 2 3 4 years for him to start to develop a shot and get into the lineup. But came out in what's it called, summer league, and shot pretty much lights out. I think the first game he was 3 for 3 from three. The second game he was like 2 of 4 from three. I mean, he was shooting threes like he's been practicing for 6 years. I don't know what happened, but he already seemed like a better shooter than Mark Smart. Now I don't. It's just summer league. I get it. I get it. I get it. But you got to understand, in college, he couldn't shoot the ball to save his life. And now he's coming in summer league and shooting. So who knows? Maybe they just found themselves a dog, one of those guys who just blows up out of nowhere and maybe turns into something that can maybe shoot some threes, sit in the corner, play good defense, and maybe turn into something in a year or two. But I actually really like what I saw from Jordan Walsh in the summer league. And if he develops any type of, consistency shooting the three ball, he could be very, very crucial for this team, maybe even this year.
He's certainly the prototypical body type that Brad Stevens loves. Long, athletic, and seems to be multidimensional and to have the acumen, the IQ to develop the game the way that Jaylen Brown had the IQ. I mean, they said he wasn't a very good shooter, but clearly he was very intelligent, and it's just all about putting in the work and then having the understanding to do it. So the kid seems like he's got that similar knack to it. He wasn't really a notorious shooter, like you said, so he's developing that game. I think he did a post practice presser, and they were like they were in a scrimmage, and then everybody yelled at him because he passed on an open three. They're like, no, shoot the ball, shoot the ball. So they're gonna beat that out of him, and put him in positions that he has to shoot. I mean, quite literally everybody but Robert Williams is going to be shooting threes on this team.
It
So
seems like, yeah.
and even then, don't be surprised if he starts busting out those threes in the regular season. And if he makes one, everyone's going to lose their fucking mind. Um, but yeah, no, I like Jordan Walsh, and I think he could be something. But just like all late round pick rookies,
Yep.
there's a high probability he's just a flash in the pan and good for minutes and games that really mean nothing.
Yep. I totally agree. I do have some high hopes for him. Maybe not this year, but in the future. Then we signed some interesting guys to training camp deals. We're going to talk a little about some of these guys briefly, and then we're probably going to close out the episode. But we signed a guy named Svi Mikhailuk. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's another guy who's like 6'7" right now. But he's a big time shooter. I mean, the man can really shoot the ball. Yeah, he's
Where
6'7".
where they find these guys, Fubbies? Where they
This
find
guy's
them?
been in the NBA for a while now. This guy's actually played. He was on the Pistons, I think the Lakers for a little bit. But the one thing he does good is shoot the ball. And I wouldn't be too surprised if he comes in and maybe earns himself a deal. Just because the way he shoots the ball. But
We'll see him in
Sam
Maine.
Sam Hauser. Wait, what'd you say?
I said I'll see him in Maine.
Yeah, Sam man. Yeah, maybe. And then we got Namias Keita. I think is how you say his name. I think he's a Portuguese guy from Portugal. So he's a bit. I think he's 7 feet. He's a big guy, can block shots, can hustle. Another guy probably won't see him on the roster.
See him in Maine.
See him in Maine. And then Jay Scrub. I don't know if you watch Summer League, but Jay Scrub can score the ball. He's a
Yeah, I did see him. He's not a bad player. But
yeah,
again, I just I I don't get excited for these preseason
yeah,
summer league. I mean, it's fun just because basketball's back in the fold and you kind of
yep,
miss it and you kind of miss the camaraderie, and then it's cool to kind of see these other guys play. There's so many iconic summer league little matchups here that you've seen over the course of the year, over the course of the last couple of years, and so that part's cool. But I really don't get attached to guys until we start catching 20, 25, 35 games into the season, and then maybe I start
yeah,
gravitating to some of these young bucks if they're putting in quality minutes and giving you something, not every game obviously because that's not feasible, but you get, you're a flash in the pan every 3 games, one out of every 3 games. I think you're starting to develop and your points start going up, and I think these guys end up contributing. I mean, hopefully Brad's doing his thing and developing these guys and making sure we're setting ourselves up for a future where, because if you're going to have 2 supermax players and then a contract like Porzingis, you need cheap young
yeah.
guys that could fill out the roster.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And with us going through all those guys, what is your dream scenario for our bench unit? Because we know who's going to play. We know who's going to start for the most part. In terms of Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Porzingis, Rob. But who are some guys down on the bench that you want to see play and think that they can actually contribute on this team? For me, I think Sam Hauser might have a big year in terms of playing time alone. He's a
Yeah,
big time shooter. Lost Grant, I think
yeah.
Sam
Pritchard.
Richard.
I mean, ultimately, I'd pick him to start, but I think they're not going to do that, and I
No,
think that he's going to come off the bench, and so for that reason, I would say him and Hauser and maybe Cornette, maybe the Murder Hornet is going to come out there and show you something and give you some quality minutes. I mean, you don't have Grant Williams anymore, so you don't have that kind of piece, and you obviously lost Marcus,
Yep.
which means that Derek White has to come into the rotation more consistently, and now you have a distressed asset in Malcolm Brogdon. So maybe you need to move him and bring in two other pieces that are going to maybe add to the depth that you need, or you know grab your balls and make a big deal, big splashy deal to kind of move Derek White back to the bench, and then you have your point guard.
Yeah, well, we have a lot that's gonna probably go down over the next few days, couple weeks from now. Brogdon's probably gonna be gone. Now, we're gonna wait and see what happens with that. Like I said, gonna discuss that when it happens. But right now, before we head out, who are you most excited to see play in the preseason? Even though some of these guys aren't gonna play too much in terms of Jalen Jason, but who are you excited to see?
Probably Walsh. Probably want to see a lot of
Jordan
Walsh. I
Walsh.
want to see a lot of yeah, I want to see a lot of Jordan Walsh. Just for the fact that he's the next young thing. It seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm and hype that's going into it. Another thing I would kind of do we know if Rob Williams is good to go to start the season?
I think he is. Yeah, I think he's good to go.
If for nothing, man, I would just like to see how that knee looks and how he's looking, even if it's 4 minutes, five
Yeah,
minutes, 7 minutes. I would like to see that just
yeah.
because how long has it been since we've had a healthy Rob Williams to start a season? Can you remember? Because I can't.
It's been a while. it's,
Yeah.
it's been a
So I
while.
mean, I'm not saying the guy needs to play 25 minutes in a preseason game, but heck, can you put the guy out for 5 minutes to start, make him tip off
Yeah,
the basketball, maybe have him make a couple of lobs, and then send him to the bench for the rest of the game? Like
yeah,
that would be kind of nice just for a change, just to see like, okay, this guy's good, he's ready, he's loose, he's getting some game reps in, and I think all that is important because if he's gonna be playing a full season, I think just sitting on the bench and just waiting for this to happen. And again, I know it's a 82 game schedule, and I'm not expecting the guy to put in quality minutes before the season started or even quality
yeah.
minutes when the season starts. But it just would be nice to maybe, I don't know, see the guy take a couple of minutes just to show everybody or to show the fans that he's good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly excited to see if he shoots the ball a little bit because, like we said before, the man's been putting in some work on his jumper. So, is he gonna start
Videos
taking
are out
some mid
there.
range? Is he gonna start taking some threes? He
The,
low
the
key
video
might.
the videos are out there. We've
I
seen
know.
it.
We always see those videos. Hassan Whiteside, I mean, it's everyone's shooting threes nowadays. But dude, they don't actually do it in game. I'm here. Ben Simmons will shoot some threes now. I mean, who knows? So see what happens with Rob Williams. But pretty
Ben
much with
Simmons.
that being said, I mean, we pretty much discussed the entire roster right now. And the last question I have for you is this team better than last year? And are they contenders? What do you think?
Contenders definitely. I mean, that they've done a great job of being that every year. Are they better than last year's? I'm gonna say yes by a little bit, but I'm only saying that because again, and I'm gonna harp on this all season. People, you're gonna be sick of me for saying this. I literally don't care. You don't have a primary ball handler, and until you do, I can't feel confident that you are the favorite. Are you a contender? 100%. Will you win 50 plus games this season? 100%. Will you be in the finals? My answer right now is no until you tell me otherwise. So, but to answer your question, yes, by a margin, Chris
A little bit.
Porzingis makes you better. I don't think we'll miss Grant. I don't think we'll miss Marcus. Aside from the fact that he handled the ball better than what we have, um, but I don't think it's that hard to find somebody that can do that job. I really
Yeah.
don't. I don't even, if you have to trade for them, I really don't think it's that much of an asset to
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be disappointed if we're in knocking on to the All-Star break and we're still looking at who's going to be the primary ball
Yeah.
handler. I'm going to be insulted as a fan, to be honest.
Yeah. So to be clear, if Malcolm Brogdon says, "Okay, I'm staying. I want to be here," do you think we still need a ball handler, or would you be like, "Okay, you know what? Brogdon, Derek White, Jason Tatum gets a little bit in there. Payne Pritchard, is that
No,
okay, or you still need
no,
another guy? Still
no,
need another guy?
because we saw what happened last year.
Yeah, but I mean,
What happened?
yeah,
What
I'm
happened last year?
I feel like Malcolm Brogdon
What
though
happened
when
last
he
year, Cubbies? What
well
happened last
listen,
year against the
but
Miami?
but if Malcolm starts, I get it. But Malcolm was hurt, wasn't he? Wasn't he hurt with the elbow injury?
Yeah, he was hurt, but I mean, I didn't, I
I
don't
don't even
feel, I
think he
don't.
played too much
He didn't. I mean, he did. He was actually a liability when he did play.
because he was injured. But
Yeah.
listen, I think when he was with the Pacers, he was actually a very good passer. I don't since he's coming off the bench, I don't think we let him be the passer because Marcus Smart. I think he can do it. But like I get what you're saying. I would take a John Wall. I'll take a Reggie
Look,
Jackson. I'll take a someone.
Reggie Jackson, perfect example. You don't got to give up anything to get him. And
Yeah.
if you
I don't
tell
even know
me,
if he's on a team.
I don't know either.
Reggie Jackson. I mean, if he's a free agent, I wouldn't mind getting him. Yeah, he's on the Nuggets. So hey,
Okay.
good for him.
So
Good for him.
so so again, how about Austin Rivers? How
Yeah,
about
Austin Rivers.
how about that guy? Can you just go give that guy a couple of bucks, bring him on the team? He doesn't have to start. Okay, so let's reevaluate your question. They go get a guy they can put in the rotation. You put Brogdon as the starter, and then a guy who can develop behind him as a confident ball handler. Then I might feel better. But even then, I'd have to see what that is, and you'd also have to get uh, Brogdon to buy in, which is a bigger if than I think most people
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, honestly, we can't really speak on that until either Brogdon gets traded or we see if he's staying or not. So, are some question marks right now with the Celtics. We'll see what ends up happening. But right now, I'm confident going into media day. That could change by tomorrow. The the Bucks could trade for anybody at this point. I don't even know. They could add someone, and then tomorrow I'm feeling, yeah, well, we suck. But right now, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like we're better than the Heat. I think the Heat got a lot worse this offseason. I feel like the Bucks are better. The Celtics are better. I think that's it. In the East, I mean, who else is really contenders? I mean, the Sixers look like they're about to fall apart. The Nets are young. The Knicks are eh. The the Raptors lost Fred Van Fleet, added Dennis Schroeder. Eh. Who else is there? The Heat.
Dude, it's Milwaukee, Miami, Boston.
You
Everybody
still
else
think
sucks.
Miami's up there, huh?
Yes, I mean until they can. I mean, look who they beat us with last year. You tell me.
All right. I agree. They're better coaching. Better
Vincent
coaching.
Martin, and they made those guys. Those guys were scrubs, and they turned them into
Yeah.
stars.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. You tell me. Like, until you do otherwise, like, what am I? I mean, they knocked off Milwaukee
Yeah.
with those guys.
Oh
So
yeah. You're right. You're right. The coaching is outweighing a lot of roster talent right now in terms of the Celtics and the Heat.
I'm still very high on Miami.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
they were what, that 8 seed? They were in the play-in tournament last year and they went to the final. So it is crazy. And dude, if you remember the first playing game, they almost lost. They were about to be out. I think it was Chicago. I think them versus Chicago almost lost. Came down to the very end, and they would have been
yep.
out of the playoffs. Imagine how different things would have been. But I think we talked about almost everything that happened this offseason regarding the Celtics. This is going to be the end of episode 1. I appreciate you guys coming through. There's going to be episodes every single week, so make sure you guys subscribe, join the family. Comment down below who you're most excited to see during the preseason, whether it's a rookie, whether it's a second-year player, a new signing in O'Shea Brissett, Delano Banton. Let me know who you guys are excited to see. And I think the first game for the Celtics is on next Sunday.
Yep.
Next Sunday, Philadelphia. So our next episode won't be talking about that. We'll probably be talking about media day and training camp.
More
So
point guard.
yeah, more hopefully we make a move for a point guard. Maybe not. Maybe we'll talk about more point guard acquisitions that we could make. But we'll be here. Next episode drops next Saturday. Like I said, make sure you guys join the family, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, appreciate you guys coming through. Peace.